as you might already know, 1.32 patch together with the Origins DLC is coming on 11th of November. After gigantic failure of the Leviathan and 1.31 patch, Paradox Interactive Tinto team is having a very big challenge over here to prove that they can make a really good content for us. You know, Leviathan felt so bad that there's still plenty of people playing on 1.30 patch, which in my opinion is a mistake because the game is playable for a long time now after many fixes. So today, while having all the patch notes and the dev diaries available for me, I'm gonna try sharing with you the best changes coming both in the new patch and the expansion, especially in the patch because I believe this might be one of the most important patches in history of EU4. Remember that if you want to get notified about this series or any other series, subscribe to the channel because I can see that only 40% of you are subscribed right now. Number 10 are typical flavor changes, new achievements, new sprites for the units, 2 music packs, and tons of the new advisor portraits. So everything related to the design, which is still very important part of the game, because for most of us, achievements is what we are playing for. We're trying to get those achievements, so adding 16 of them is going to be very helpful for our gameplay. At the same time, those unit sprites are actually quite amazing. Number 9 are AI improvements. As you might know, currently AI is not really handling too good all of the features that EU4 is offering to them. First of all, Lucky Nations are getting additional 25% GAF capacity, and the other AIs are also getting a better understanding on how to handle the GAF capacity, so they're not going to randomly release vassals. And at the same time, all other AI improvements were split between the economy improvements, so for example budgeting the forts and the buildings, war improvements, where AI for example is going to try prioritizing killing your army better, not allowing you to do whatever you want, and also all the other changes, like for example mana spending. Number 8 are changes to the estate privileges, where 11 are inside the DLC and 8 are for free, and new government reforms. From what I've been seeing on the dev diaries, those estate privileges are actually quite nice and will give us more of a choices in a natural gameplay, because right now in the current meta, in most of the cases you're taking the same privileges, and here I am seeing new opportunities, like for example no penalty for annexing a vassal. Number 7 are general rebalance changes, like for example nerf to concentrated development, which was the most broken thing in the Leviathan, improvements in the performance in the game itself, which was also one of the biggest issues of the Leviathan, nerfs to the natives, so colonizers will be having again a quite normal gameplay, not the natives all over the new world, a change to how institutions are working, and I'm gonna be honest, at first I thought it's a dramatic bad choice to do something like this, but looks like it's heading into the right direction with how they want to balance it. What's gonna be interesting for less experienced players is that they scaled back things like war score, aggressive expansion and overextension effects from conquering lands, so it's, you know, adjusted to the amount of the new provinces development that got introduced in the many latest patches, so newer players will be having a little bit less of a challenge. Number 6 are changes to different religions, so Catholics gained a really gigantic buff, and in my opinion it might be one of the best religions, probably the best in the single player and one of the best in the multiplayer thanks to those. There are some minor changes to the Muslims, Coptics, Fetishist religions, so for example Fetishist right now is going to have 2 bonuses, one from the monarch and the other halved from the heir, and Judaism got a gigantic overhaul, which is pretty much similar to the Protestant religion, but a little bit different, and are having even more flavor than Protestant religion. When looking at the bonuses that it's giving, it's going to be an awesome religion to try at the beginning of the patch. Number 5 are 52 new monuments coming. When I saw this announcement, I was honestly both excited and scared. Excited because monuments were the best feature of the Leviathan DLC, so I like its flavor, and scared because that makes over 100 monuments in the whole world, which is a gigantic amount. And taking into account the type of the bonuses that they are giving, it appeared to me that it might actually break the game with the too big amount of the great bonuses in some of the regions. So what I actually did, I shared my feedback with Paradox that okay, this is a great change, but we need to limit the monuments somehow. And my idea was that let's make a requirement that the province of the monument has to be your culture or accepted culture if you want the monument to give you a certain bonus. And look at this patch note. This was actually introduced by the Paradox. So I wanted to mention this as an example that one of the biggest advantages of the Paradox Tinto is that they are listening to the community feedbacks, and because of this I believe that the next changes that are coming are going to get better and better and better, and there won't be any other flop like Leviathan anymore. Number 4 are the new nations and new formable nations introduced, like Israel, Aksumite Empire, Great Zimbabwe, Somalia, Rozvi, and now you can form Mali, you can form Ethiopia, Congo or Masina, and Zulus are of course a nation that can be spawned. So I've put this on number 4 because also for most of the players you play in a certain region to achieve something, and forming a certain nation that is giving you great bonuses is something that we are playing for. That's why it's going to be an important change for the patch. But at the same time, I would like to mention here that it's a good decision that the Paradox team decided to maybe create new nations in the region, but no new provinces. And this is because with the amount of the provinces that got introduced in the last few patches, you know, the game stability was harder to maintain. Number 3 are other changes from the patch, but really worth mentioning. So right now, hovering over a shield of a non-existent nation on the course list will highlight all of the cores that this nation is still having, which is going to be super useful for using the vassals for the reconquests. There are stripes in the provinces with separatists in the unrest map modes. Right now you can see, okay, here I don't have any separatists anymore, so I can change the culture of the province or whatever. The development map mode is adjusted to the provinces having gigantic developments, so it's not like one green province and all the others are red. It's adjusted to the median color. The coalition map mode is a little bit better to understand now, so you know who is in the coalition, who can join the coalition, and who could join the coalition but have good relations with you. There's an alert that will let you know that your forts are being sieged. You can train your army in the subject's land, which was really missing in the past. You can get artillery barracks, which might be also quite nice in many of the cases. CAF to inf ratio is now calculated for each country in the battle. It's a great buff for the CAF nations, because in the past, if you were a CAF nation with enough CAF to infantry ratio and your ally was just a normal nation without this, you couldn't really fight together in the same battle because both of you would get minuses to your CAF, and right now it doesn't matter because you both are calculating CAF to inf ratio separately. Colonial nations are going to change the color together with you. So in the past, if I was for example England and I had colonies and then I formed Great Britain, those colonies stayed in the English color, same as I was for example Prussia and then I formed Germany, the color wouldn't change. There's going to be a date that is going to tell you when you can cancel state edict, which is super useful because in the past you had to go to the macro builder and see how much time it's put in. Yes, when you're subjugating a nation, you're going to see all of his provinces. There were situations where in the past you couldn't even help your own vassal with his rebels because it was in the terra incognita. This is a quite big nerf, but an interesting one, because remember, if your units were full and you're getting gigantic attrition, yes, you're getting manpower to reinforce, but you never paid money actually for these reinforcements. So right now you're going to pay for this. And yes, you can share maps while being at war. finally something that is going to be very useful, especially in the multiplayer. Number 2 are the new mission trees. You know, if you want to play in a certain region, it's really hard to play with generating mission tree, which is fine, but it's nothing compared to like great flavor. And one thing that Paradox was being criticized in the past for the mission trees is that, first of all, making them really overpowered, or making them all about getting claims. So in this case, I must say, based on the dev diaries, that they went a little bit different path. They're giving a lot of flavor to most of the missions. Of course, there are missions just about the claims, but there's tons of flavor, or for example, basing the mission, which is dynamic, on your religion. If you go fetishes, if you go Muslim, you get different missions. There are a lot of interesting things that you need to achieve to get even different bonuses. So I really like this direction, and I think this kind of a flavor is what the game, what the DLCs need. This is what the DLCs are about. Getting a right flavor to the certain region of the game. So I hope in the future they'll do the same, for example, for Poland and Northern Europe. And finally, number 1, probably you already expected what I'm gonna say here, bug fixes. If you've seen the dev diary, over half or even 60% of it are the bug fixes. 450 of them are included in the patch notes, and I'm pretty sure they are going to also add a couple of few before the patch is going to be released. This is a great job. There are even some of the bug fixes that weren't made in ages, and let me show a few examples. Infantry and cav is not going to deploy in the second line when you have enough of artillery available. This is something that was nerfing cav a lot, where third of your second line was just cav instead of artillery, even though we had full artillery. But right now it's not longer coming, so together with the cav to inf ratio change, this is a really good and nice buff to the cav nations. Drilling now works on actual troop levels, not the amount of the regiments, which is good because this was a big exploit when you could have 200 regiments in one province, but with 0 strength, because you just did not reinforce them after the war, and you could get infinite amount of their army professionalism. AI is no longer gonna buy useless overseas provinces that aren't upstream for the trade nodes. One of the most annoying things from the 1.31 was that you sent an army to a fort and then you just were doing other things. And it then turned out that this army just stopped a province before the fort. Right now it's fixed. It's not gonna do that. Something that might be called a bug, but also just a rebalance change. It was always there. When you're assaulting a fort, let's say defenders, there are 10,000 defenders, and you're assaulting a fort with 1 million troops, then during the assault, the game is gonna take damage for the whole 1 million troops, so I could lose even 500,000 troops assaulting 10,000 troops fort. So right now, it's gonna only take, I think, the combat width of the troops for the assault. So the losses that you're gonna get during the assault are going to be way smaller. Attrition losses in the home territory are going now to be calculated in the war screen, which is great news because in the past only attrition on the enemy lands were counted, so it wasn't really showing how many troops died in a center war. That's gonna be counted. And you know, there are quite a couple different, especially exploits turned off, or general bug fixes, like for example right now vassals are gonna fabricate more claims on the provinces that you marked as provinces of interest. In the past they were doing so, but not always. There won't be any negative crownland after selling titles, so there's this one less dev click at the start in each of the guides that I'm gonna present to you. Exploit where you could get a certain ruler from switching the stage general is right now fixed. You won't be able to use the consoles in multiplayer anymore. Yes, there were people that were doing this, that was possible, and many other bug fixes, especially the smaller ones, which, you know, in general you don't feel until you actually meet them in a certain nation. So yes guys, you can see that there are plenty of changes coming in the new patch, especially the patch, but also a great flavor in the DLC itself. So in my opinion, yes, there is hope guys. There is hope that this patch, as mentioned, is going to be the most important patch in the history of EU4. Because if this was a flop like 1.31, that would be F for EU4. But it looks like it's really good changes, and I'm gonna be looking forward to start playing it and presenting you the new content very soon. So guys, if you of course enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and tell me in comments what is your favorite change coming in the DLC or the patch. See ya!